The stars looked different from inside the massive alien ship. Admiral Kethavar stood before the viewing window of his dreadnought, watching the small yellow star grow larger on the screens. His forearms moved across the control panels as he read the latest reports about this new species they had found. Humans. He said the word slowly, testing how it sounded. His translator made it come out as a series of clicks and hums. Show me what we know about them. The holographic display lit up with images of the third planet in this system, blue and green, covered with water and land. The aliens living there walked on 2 legs and had only 2 arms each. They had built small cities and primitive flying machines. Some of their ships could barely reach their own moon. They call their world Earth, reported his second-in-command, Velthar. Our scouts found 847 different languages and thousands of separate governments. They fight each other constantly over resources and territory. Very primitive behavior. Kethavar nodded. In his 300 years of service to the Zeltharan Empire, he had seen this pattern many times. New species always followed the same path. First contact, then surrender, then integration into the Empire. Some fought back for a few days or weeks, but they always gave up when they realized how powerful the Empire was. How many ships do they have that can fight? Kethavar asked. Maybe 200 vessels that could pose any threat. Most are designed for moving cargo between their planets and moons. We count perhaps 50 ships that carry weapons. Velthar paused the display on an image of human military vessels. Very basic energy weapons and chemical missiles, nothing that can penetrate our shields. Kethavar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. This would be easy. The Empire had conquered 847 different species across the galaxy. Each conquest added to their knowledge, their technology, and their power. Soon there would be 848. On the third planet, Captain Hana sat in the command center of Luna Station, Earth's primary space monitoring facility. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on the readings coming from the deep space sensors. Contact bearing 047, distance 12 billion kilometers and closing, reported Lieutenant Kyung from his position at the sensor station. I'm reading multiple large objects, definitely artificial. Hana felt her heart rate increase. This was what everyone had been afraid of but hoping would never happen. First contact with alien life, and they were coming in what looked like warships. How? Many ships, she asked. 67 confirmed contacts. The largest ones they're huge. Each one is bigger than our entire orbital defense platform. Hana reached for the red communication device on her desk. This was the direct line to Earth's government leaders. She had hoped never to use it. This is Luna Station calling Priority Alpha. We have confirmed alien contact. Multiple vessels approaching the inner system. The response came within seconds. Luna Station, this is President Jiwan. Are you certain about this? Yes, Madam President. 67 ships, clearly artificial, heading straight for Earth. They'll reach us in approximately 18 hours at their current speed. There was silence on the other end for a moment. I'm calling an emergency session. Keep monitoring and report any changes immediately. In the presidential building on Earth, Jiwan walked quickly toward the emergency meeting room. Her advisors were already gathering around the large table. General Taman was studying holographic displays of the approaching fleet. Diplomat Minji was reading through first contact protocols that everyone hoped they would never need. What do we know? Jiwan asked as she took her seat. Military advisor Do-hyun spoke first. The alien fleet is massive. Our best ships are like rowboats compared to their smallest vessels. If they want to destroy us, we cannot stop them with conventional weapons. Maybe they come in peace, Minji suggested. Many scenarios for first contact assume peaceful intentions. Taman shook his head. You don't approach a new world with 67 warships if you want to make friends. This looks like an invasion fleet. So, what are our options? Jiwan asked. We can try to negotiate, Minji said. Offer them resources, technology sharing, cultural exchange. We can prepare to fight, Taman added. Rally every ship we have, activate all defense systems, and hope we can hurt them enough to make them think twice. Do-hyun pulled up new data on his screen. Or we can surrender immediately and hope they treat us well as conquered people. Ji-won looked around the room at her advisors. These were the smartest people on Earth, and their options were negotiate, fight a hopeless battle, or give up. None of them sounded good. How long until they reach Earth, she asked. 16 hours, Do-hyun replied. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Kethvar was preparing the standard conquest protocol. The Empire had perfected this process over thousands of years. It was efficient, effective, and usually bloodless. Begin transmission of the surrender demand, he ordered. Velthar activated the communication systems. The message went out in every human language their computers had been able to decode from intercepted broadcasts. People of Earth, I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zeltharan Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our great civilization. You will surrender immediately and accept imperial rule. Your governments will be dissolved. Your military forces will stand down. Those who cooperate will be treated fairly. Those who resist will be eliminated. You have 12 hours to comply. On Luna Station, Captain Hana received the message along with every other human in the solar system. The words were clear, even through the alien translator. Submit or die. She opened a channel to the UES Defiance, humanity's most advanced warship, currently orbiting between Earth and Mars. Captain Hyunwoo, did you receive the alien transmission? Yes, Captain Hana. Every word. Hyunwoo's voice was calm, but she could hear the anger underneath. What are your orders? Stand by. We're waiting for word from Earth. In the emergency meeting room, President Ji-won and her advisors had heard the message. The room was quiet, for a long moment. 12 hours, Minji said. They're not giving us much time to think. There's nothing to think about, General Taemin said, his voice hard. They want us to surrender our entire civilization without even trying to defend ourselves. The smart move might be surrender, Do-hyun said quietly. We cannot win a military confrontation. At least if we cooperate, some humans survive. As slaves, Taemin replied. Ji-won stood up and walked to the window. She could see people in the streets below, going about their daily lives, not knowing that in 12 hours they might be under alien rule or dead. What kind of message do we send back? She asked. Minji opened her diplomatic protocols. Standard procedure would be to request more time, ask for negotiations, try to establish communication. They didn't ask for negotiations, Taemin pointed out. They gave us an ultimatum. Ji-won turned back to face her advisors. What would humans do? Not what the textbooks say, not what's smart or safe. What would humans actually do? The room was quiet. Everyone knew the answer, even if they didn't want to say it. We'd tell them to go to hell, Taemin said finally. Ji-won nodded. Open a channel. To Captain Hyunwoo. The connection was made within seconds. Captain, are you ready to send a message to our alien visitors? Yes, Madam President. What should I tell them? Ji-won looked around the room one more time. Her advisors were watching her, waiting for her decision. History would remember what she said next. Tell them they have 72 hours to leave our system. Tell them this is their only warning. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Hyunwoo smiled as he composed the message. He had served in Earth's military for 20 years, and he knew how humans responded to threats. The transmission went out on all frequencies directed at the alien fleet. This is Captain Hyunwoo of the United Earthship Defiance, speaking for all humanity. You came to our home and demanded our surrender. We reject your demand. You have 72 hours to leave our system and never return. This is your only warning. Leave or fall. On the alien flagship, Admiral Kethvar listened to the human response with amazement. In 847 conquests, no species had ever threatened the Empire. Most surrendered immediately. A few tried to negotiate. Some fought desperately when cornered. But none had ever given the Empire an ultimatum. They're threatening us, Velthar said, sounding confused. These primitive creatures with their tiny ships are telling the Zeltharan Empire to leave or face consequences. Kethvar studied the tactical displays. Human military strength was negligible compared to his fleet. Their weapons could barely scratch his ship's paint. Their technology was thousands of years behind Imperial standards. Perhaps their translator is malfunctioning, he suggested. Surely they meant to ask for mercy. But deep in his mind, Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in centuries of conquest. Uncertainty. Species that were about to be crushed did not issue warnings to their crushers. They begged, they negotiated, they surrendered, or they ran away. They did not calmly tell the greatest military force in the galaxy to leave or fall. Prepare for orbital bombardment, Kethvar ordered. These humans need to learn respect. High Admiral Vexithara had conquered 47 different species during her long career with the Zeltharan Empire. She was known throughout the galaxy as the Empire's most skilled military commander, the one they sent when other admirals failed. When Emperor Zeth Karan himself ordered her to deal with the human problem, she came prepared for war. The 5th Conquest Fleet was the largest military force ever assembled by the Empire. 5,000 warships including 12 planet crackers, weapons capable of splitting worlds apart. Vexithara had brought enough firepower to destroy entire solar systems. Surely these primitive humans would surrender when they realized the true might of the Empire. Show me what happened to Kethvar's fleet, she ordered as her massive flagship, the Eternal Dominance, entered the human system. The tactical display showed the wreckage of the first contact fleet scattered throughout human space, hundreds of ships reduced to debris floating in the cold vacuum. The survivors had retreated to the edge of the system, their ships damaged and their crews demoralized. How did primitives do this? Asked her second-in-command, Commander Zexthul. That's what we're here to find out, Vexithara replied. And then we're going to show them what happens when you embarrass the Empire. On Earth, Dr. Seongho was making final adjustments to humanity's most ambitious project. As the planet's leading physicist and architect of the solar defense grid, he had spent months preparing for this moment. The aliens had brought planet crackers, weapons that could destroy worlds. Humans had responded by turning their sun into a weapon. Solar Control, this is Earth Command, came the voice from his communications panel. Are we ready? Seongho looked at the massive display showing the network of satellites surrounding the sun. Each one was positioned precisely to channel and direct the star's energy. It had taken every physicist on Earth working together to make this possible. We're as ready as we'll ever be, he replied. The solar array is fully operational. We can generate directed plasma bursts with the force of 100 hydrogen bombs. The question is whether our satellites can survive the feedback. Do we have a choice? Seongho looked out the window at the sky where alien ships were beginning to appear. No, we don't. Vexithara watched the human planet grow larger on her screens. Unlike Kethvar, she would not make the mistake of underestimating these creatures. She had studied the battle recordings and understood that humans were more dangerous than they appeared, but she also understood that there were limits to what primitive technology could accomplish. Begin with long-range bombardment, she ordered. Use the planet crackers. Split their world in half and end this quickly. The massive weapons charged up, preparing to fire beams that could cut through the core of a planet. But before they could discharge, something impossible happened. The human sun began to move. Not the sun itself, but its surface. Solar flares erupted from specific points on the star's surface, each one aimed directly at the alien fleet. Columns of nuclear fire, each one containing more energy than most civilizations used in a year, reached across space toward the Zeltharan ships. Evasive maneuvers, Vexithara shouted, but her ships were too big and too close together. The solar flares struck the fleet like the hand of an angry god. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles were vaporized instantly. Others had their shields overwhelmed and their hulls melted by temperatures found only in the hearts of stars. They've weaponized their sun, Commander Zexthul reported in disbelief. How is that possible? Impossible or not, it's happening, Vexithara replied grimly. Fall back to long range and assess damage. But the humans weren't finished. As the alien fleet tried to retreat, Captain Han was implementing the next phase of Earth's defense. She had been a video game developer before the war, spending her time creating digital worlds where players fought against impossible odds. Now she was applying those same principles to real warfare. The aliens fight like they're playing a strategy game, she explained to her team. They have standard formations, predictable tactics, and they follow military doctrine that hasn't changed in centuries. But humans don't fight fair. We change the rules. Her first rule change was simple. Every few hours, human tactics would become completely different. The aliens would adapt to one style of warfare, then suddenly find themselves facing something completely new. Launch Phase 2, she ordered. Across the solar system, cargo ships that had appeared to be fleeing suddenly turned around and accelerated toward the alien fleet. But these weren't cargo ships anymore. Human engineers had filled them with nuclear warheads and AI pilots programmed with one simple instruction. Hit the biggest alien ship you can find. The Zeltharans saw the approaching vessels and dismissed them as desperate refugees. By the time they realized the truth, it was too late. Makeshift kamikaze ships, each one the size of a city block, slammed into their largest vessels and exploded with the force of small suns. This is insane, Zexthul shouted as another cruiser disappeared in nuclear fire. They're using suicide attacks. All species use suicide attacks when they're desperate, Vexithara replied. But privately, she was beginning to understand that these humans might not be desperate at all. They might be enjoying this. The next surprise came from Commander Sora, an engineer who had been studying captured alien technology. While other humans were fighting with conventional weapons, she had been learning how the alien teleportation systems worked. And she had discovered something interesting. If you knew the right frequencies, you could teleport objects directly into enemy ships. Teleportation successful, she reported to Earth Command. Nuclear warhead delivered directly to the engine room of target vessel. On her screens, another alien ship simply vanished in a flash of light. No warning, no incoming missile to shoot down. One moment the ship was there, the next moment it was gone, replaced by an expanding cloud of radioactive plasma. How many more warheads do we have? Asked the voice from Earth Command. Enough, Sora replied with a smile. The aliens were kind enough to teach us their own technology. Now we're using it better than they do. But perhaps the strangest surprise was happening on Earth's oceans. Commander Kyung had somehow convinced the whales and dolphins to participate in the defense effort. As alien amphibious assault craft approached Earth's coastlines, they found themselves under attack by creatures they had never encountered before. Whales rammed landing craft with the force of living torpedoes. Dolphins worked in coordinated groups to disable alien submarines. The ocean itself seemed to be fighting against the invaders, guided by intelligence that the Zeltharans could not understand or predict. Sir, we're receiving reports from all landing forces, an officer reported to Vexithara. The planet's marine life appears to be actively hostile. Our amphibious units are requesting immediate extraction. Marine life doesn't coordinate military attacks, Vexithara said. Tell that to the whales, sir. High Admiral Vexithara stared at the tactical display showing her fleet. What was left of it? In 6 hours of combat, she had lost more ships than in her previous 47 conquests. Combined, the humans had used weapons she had never imagined. Weaponized asteroids, computer viruses, nuclear suicide ships, teleported bombs, solar flares, and apparently trained sea creatures. What kind of species are these? She wondered aloud. Her question was answered when Captain Hyunwoo appeared on her communication screen again. He still looked calm and professional, as if discussing the weather instead of warfare. High Admiral Vexithara, I presume. This is Captain Hyunwoo of the United Earth Defense Force. I hope you're beginning to understand why we suggested you should leave. Your tactics are barbaric, she sputtered. No civilized species fights this way. You're absolutely right, Hyunwoo agreed. Civilized species don't turn their sons into weapons or train whales to sink landing craft. But humans aren't civilized. We're survivors. We spent millions of years on a planet that was trying to kill us, so we learned to be creative about killing things back. The Empire will not be defeated by primitive barbarians. Actually, you already have been defeated, Hyunwoo pointed out. You came here with 5,000 ships. How many do you have left? Vexithara looked at her damage reports. Less than half her fleet remained operational. "This is just one battle," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is. And you? Lost. But here's the thing about humans, we learn fast. Every trick you've shown us, every weapon you've used, every tactic you've tried, we've been studying it. Right now, human engineers are reverse engineering your technology. Human strategists are analyzing your battle doctrines. Human scientists are finding new ways to kill you." The transmission paused for a moment, then continued. "You want to know the real difference between humans and civilized species? Civilized species try to minimize casualties and end wars quickly. Humans try to win no matter what it costs. We don't just want to defeat you. We want to make sure you never threaten anyone ever again." As if to prove his point, new contacts appeared on Vexithara's sensors. More asteroids were moving, but these were different, bigger, faster, and they were coming from directions that should have been empty space. "Those are planets," Zexithal whispered. "They've turned entire planets into weapons." The Zeltheran fleet moved closer to Earth like a pack of metal predators. Admiral Kethvar watched the blue planet grow larger on his screens and felt confident about what would happen next. The humans had 72 hours to surrender, but he would not wait that long. A few demonstration strikes would show them how hopeless their situation was. "Target their military installations," he ordered. "Destroy enough to make them afraid, but leave their cities intact. We want workers, not ruins." The fleet's targeting computers identified what looked like military bases across the human planet. Energy beams lanced down from space, striking the targets with enough force to level mountains. Explosions lit up the planet's surface as the alien weapons found their marks. But something was wrong. The explosions were too clean, too perfect, and the humans were not broadcasting surrender messages or pleas for mercy. Captain Hana watched the alien attack from Luna Station. The energy beam struck exactly where they were supposed to, the decoy facilities that Earth's military had spent months preparing. Each fake base was filled with old equipment, holographic projectors, and explosive charges designed to make impressive fireballs when hit. "All decoy sites successfully struck," reported Lieutenant Kyung. "The real military bases are undamaged." "Good," Hana replied. "Now let's show them what human warfare looks like. Signal Commander Sunho." In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Commander Sunho received the message he had been waiting for. Around him, hundreds of asteroids floated in space, looking like nothing more than space rocks. But appearances could be deceiving. "Activate the belt," Sunho ordered. Across the asteroid field, hidden engines came to life. Each asteroid began to move, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Magnetic accelerators buried deep in the rocks pushed them toward incredible speeds. Within minutes, thousands of asteroids were racing toward the alien fleet at 15% of light speed. The Zeltherans detected the movement, but their computers could not understand what they were seeing. Space rocks do not suddenly start moving in formation. Their sensors showed impossible readings, chunks of metal and stone accelerating to velocities that should require massive starship engines. "Admiral, we have multiple contacts approaching from the asteroid belt," Velthar reported. "But the readings don't make sense. They appear to be rocks." Kethvar looked at the sensor data. "Rocks do not move at those speeds. Check the sensors for malfunction." "Sensors are functioning normally. The objects are definitely asteroids, but they're accelerating directly toward our fleet." By the time the Zeltherans realized what was happening, it was too late to avoid the impact. The asteroids struck their ships like bullets fired from the gun of a god. The alien shields, designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles, could not handle solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. The first asteroid punched through the shield of a cruiser and kept going, tearing the ship apart from bow to stern. The second and third asteroids hit other vessels, and then the main barrage arrived. Hundreds of rocks moving faster than most starships could travel turned the Zeltheran formation into expanding clouds of debris. "Impossible!" Kathavar shouted as his flagship shook under the impact of smaller fragments. "No species has ever weaponized their asteroid belt, but the humans were just getting started, while the aliens tried to understand how space rocks had become weapons. Yuna was launching her own attack from a bunker deep beneath Earth's surface. She had been waiting her entire career for this moment. As head of Earth's Cyber Warfare Division, she had spent years developing computer viruses that could adapt to any system, learn any language, and corrupt any network. The alien ships used technology thousands of years more advanced than Earth's, but they had never faced an enemy that treated their computer networks like a game to be won. Initiating digital infiltration, Yuna announced to her team. Remember, their systems are designed for honorable combat between civilized species. They don't know what a virus is. The human malware reached the alien ships through their own communication networks. The Zeltharan computers, built for efficiency and reliability, had no defenses against programs designed to be malicious, deceptive, and self-replicating. Within minutes, ship after ship began to experience system failures. On the bridge of Kethvar's, flagship control panels began displaying error messages in languages that should not exist. The ship's artificial intelligence started speaking in human curse words that it had learned from intercepted broadcasts. Weapon systems fired at random targets. Life support systems began playing human music at maximum volume. "What is happening? To our ships?" Kethvar demanded. "Unknown, sir. Our computer networks are being attacked by some kind of infectious program. It's spreading faster than we can contain it." Velthar's station suddenly displayed a message in perfect Zeltharan. "Hello. You have been infected with human virus 47. Get wrecked. Your computer is now playing human games. Current score, humans 1, aliens 0. Would you like to play again?" But the real shock came when the human ground forces engaged the Zeltharan landing parties. Commander Minho had been preparing for this moment ever since the first alien scout ship had accidentally crashed on Earth 3 years ago. While the aliens thought they were successfully hiding their reconnaissance, humans had been reverse engineering their technology and learning their tactics. The Zeltharan soldiers were equipped with the finest armor and weapons in the galaxy. They had conquered hundreds of worlds using superior technology and overwhelming firepower. They expected the primitive humans to either surrender immediately or fight with crude chemical weapons. Instead, they faced enemies who had been secretly training with captured alien equipment for years. Minho's soldiers used stolen Zeltharan energy rifles, wore modified alien armor, and employed tactics that no civilized species would consider. "Remember," Minho told his troops over the radio, "they fight like soldiers. We fight like humans. Use everything. Buildings, vehicles, civilians, pets, anything that can hurt them or slow them down." The alien landing force expected to face human military units in organized battles. Instead, they found themselves fighting an entire planet. Taxi drivers rammed their vehicles into alien troops. Construction workers used industrial equipment to attack enemy positions. Children threw rocks with perfect accuracy because humans had been practicing that particular skill for millions of years. But the most disturbing thing for the Zeltharans was how the humans treated casualties. When Zeltharan soldiers were wounded, their comrades would retreat to get them medical attention. When human soldiers were wounded, they would often become more dangerous, fighting with desperate fury until their last breath. "They don't fear death the way other species do," one Zeltharan officer reported to his commander. "They fight harder when they're losing. It's unnatural." What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting for survival against impossible odds. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved on worlds where cooperation and peaceful coexistence were necessary for survival. Humans had evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill them, where everything from the weather to the wildlife was a deadly threat. Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been helpless against his superior technology. Half his ships were offline due to computer viruses. A quarter of his remaining vessels had been destroyed by weaponized asteroids. His ground forces were being defeated by creatures who turned everyday objects into tools of war. "This is not how conquest works," he said to himself. "They should be surrendering, not attacking us with their own star system." "Admiral," Velthar reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship." Captain Hyunwoo's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, professional, almost friendly. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Hyunwoo. I hope you're beginning to understand your situation. Your fleet has been in our system for 8 hours. You have 64 hours left to accept our terms and leave. Your terms? Kethvar sputtered. You are primitives. We are the Zeltharan Empire. You were the Zeltharan Empire, Hyunwoo corrected. Right now your target's in our home system and you're not doing very well. We've destroyed or disabled most of your fleet, corrupted your computer systems, and defeated your ground forces. This is what happens when you threaten humans. Impossible. Our technology is thousands of years more advanced than yours. Hyunwoo smiled. Your technology is very impressive, but you made one mistake. You assumed that having better tools makes you better at using them. Humans have been fighting wars since before we invented fire. We've spent our entire history learning how to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and more advanced than we are. The transmission continued. You have a choice, Admiral. You can leave our system peacefully and tell your empire that humans are not to be bothered. Or you can stay and find out what other surprises we've prepared for you. What other surprises? Kethvar asked despite himself. Well, we've only been fighting you for 8 hours, Hyunwoo explained. We've had 72 hours to prepare. You've seen our asteroid guns and our computer viruses and our ground tactics. But humans are creative. We've had time to think of much more interesting ways to hurt you. Emperor Zethkaran had ruled the Zeltharan Empire for 800 years. In all that time, no species had ever dared to defy him twice. The reports from Admiral Kethvar had been disturbing. The reports from High Admiral Vexthara had been impossible. Now he was going to handle this human problem personally. The Imperial Armada was the largest military force in galactic history. 1 million ships carrying the combined technology of dozens of conquered species. Reality-warping weapons that could erase matter from existence. Temporal manipulators that could age enemy ships to dust in seconds. Psychic bombardment systems that could drive entire populations insane with fear. The Emperor's flagship, Universal Dominion, was larger than most space stations. It carried weapons that had never been used in combat because no enemy had ever been strong enough to require them. Today, that would change. These humans have forgotten their place in the cosmic order, the Emperor declared to his assembled admirals. They think their primitive tricks can challenge the might of the Empire. We will teach them otherwise. On Earth, Admiral Nari coordinated the defense from the command station hidden deep inside Jupiter's massive core. The months since first contact had been busy ones for humanity. Every planet, moon, and asteroid in the solar system now served a strategic purpose. The entire system had become a fortress. Enemy fleet size? She asked her tactical officer. 1 million confirmed contacts, Lieutenant Woojin replied. And sir, some of those ships are showing energy signatures we've never seen before. They're not just bigger than anything we've faced. They're using completely different technology, Nari studied the incoming data. The Empire had brought weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics, ships that existed partially outside normal space, weapons that could attack targets in the past. This was going to be unlike anything humans had faced before. Signal all defense stations, she ordered. Operation Last Stand is now active. The first Imperial attack came without warning. Reality-warping beams struck the outer planets and Neptune simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized. It was as if the planet had never been there at all. The empty space where it had been was perfectly smooth, showing no trace that matter had ever occupied that location. What kind of weapon erases a planet from reality? Asked Commander Dong-Yun from the Science Division. The kind we need to figure out how to counter, Nari replied grimly. What do our sensors tell us about those beams? They're manipulating fundamental particles at the quantum level, Dong-Yun explained, essentially convincing reality that the target never existed, but there might be a way to defend against it. Human brains seem to be naturally resistant to reality manipulation. What do you mean? Human consciousness evolved in a chaotic environment where we had to constantly distinguish between what was real and what was dangerous. Our neural patterns are actually interfering with the quantum effects of their weapons. We're too stubborn to be erased from existence. It was an absurd explanation, but it seemed to be working. When the reality-warping beams struck human ships, With crews aboard, the vessels flickered but remained solid. The human minds inside them were somehow anchoring their ships to reality through sheer force of will. But the Empire had other weapons. Temporal manipulators began targeting the human fleet, aging ships thousands of years in seconds. Metal corroded, systems failed, and hulls crumbled as time itself became a weapon. Dr. Yuna in the Temporal Research Lab had been preparing for this possibility. "Activate the temporal shields," she ordered. "If they want to play with time, let's show them how humans handle time travel." The shields weren't really shields at all. They were temporal feedback loops that redirected time-based attacks back at their source. When the Imperial ships tried to age human vessels, their own weapons began aging them instead. The attackers watched in horror as their own ships corroded and fell apart from weapons they had fired themselves. "Impossible." Emperor Zethkaran raged from his flagship. "How are these primitives countering our most advanced weapons?" "Unknown, Imperial Majesty," replied his tactical coordinator. "Their defensive systems appear to operate on principles we don't understand. It's as if they're using our own weapons against us." But the Empire's most devastating attack was yet to come. Massive psychic amplifiers began broadcasting waves of pure terror and despair toward the human fleet. These were weapons designed to break the minds of entire species, driving them to madness or suicide. No known defense existed against psychic bombardment of this magnitude. The waves struck the human ships and nothing happened. "Sir, psychic bombardment appears to be ineffective," reported an Imperial officer. "Increase power to maximum." "No. Species can resist level 10 psychic assault." The psychic weapons fired again, pouring enough mental energy to drive 1 billion beings insane directly into human minds. The crews of the human ships felt a brief moment of unease, then went back to their duties. Commander Jae-hyun, monitoring the psychic attacks from his ship, opened a channel to the Imperial fleet. "Thank you for the motivational speech," he said cheerfully. "But if you want to demoralize humans, you'll need to try harder than that. We've spent our entire evolution dealing with existential dread. A little psychic pressure just makes us more focused." What the Empire didn't understand was that humans had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, other humans. Survival required the ability to function under constant stress and fear. The psychic attacks that could break other species were just another Tuesday for humanity. But while the Empire was failing to break human minds in space, something else was happening across the galaxy. Commander Jae-hyun had been busy during the months between battles, and his work was about to bear fruit. "Admiral Nari, this is Deep Strike Command," came a voice from across the galaxy. "Operation Backfire is commencing now." The Empire had made a critical error. While focusing all their attention on conquering one solar system, they had left their supply lines and infrastructure vulnerable. Humans had been quietly using captured FTL technology to map the entire Zeltharan Empire, identifying critical points of failure. Now, human strike teams were attacking Imperial supply depots, communication nodes, and administrative centers across hundreds of worlds. But they weren't just destroying Imperial infrastructure. They were delivering something far more dangerous. Attention-enslaved species of the galaxy, broadcast human voices in thousands of different languages. "This is the United Earth Liberation Force. We are humans, and we are here to offer you something your Imperial masters never did: hope." The broadcasts continued across the Empire. "We know what it's like to be threatened by a superior force. We know what it's like to face extinction. But we also know that no force in the universe is truly invincible. We're going to show you how to fight back." Along with the broadcasts, human ships delivered weapons, tactical manuals, and something even more valuable: proof that the Empire could be defeated. Species that had been conquered for centuries suddenly found themselves equipped with human-designed weapons and human military doctrine. On the capital world of Zethmora Prime, Emperor Zethkaran watched in growing horror as rebellion spread across his empire faster than his forces could contain it. Species that had been docile slaves for generations were suddenly fighting with tactics that seemed familiar. "They're using human strategies," reported General Kolveth. "Improvised weapons, guerrilla tactics, Coordinated attacks on infrastructure. It's spreading across every sector. How are humans coordinating rebellion across the entire galaxy while fighting us here? Unknown, Imperial Majesty, but our intelligence suggests they've been mapping our empire for months, possibly years. They knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. The Emperor stared at the strategic display showing his empire dissolving into chaos. Red markers indicated active rebellions on thousands of worlds. The humans had done something no invader had ever attempted. They had turned the Empire's greatest strength, its vast size and diverse populations, into its greatest weakness. Recall all fleets, he ordered. We must restore order to the Empire. Sir, that would mean abandoning the attack on the human system. The human system is one star among billions. The Empire is everything. But as Imperial ships began withdrawing from human space to deal with rebellions across the galaxy, Admiral Nari was preparing humanity's next move. Signal Captain Jihoon, she ordered. Begin Phase 4. Captain Jihoon commanded the newest addition to humanity's fleet. Ships built using a combination of human engineering and reverse-engineered alien technology. They were smaller than Imperial vessels but faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapons that the Empire had never seen before. All ships, this is Captain Jihoon. We've spent months learning how they fight, now we're going to teach them how we fight. The human fleet that emerged from hiding wasn't trying to defend Earth anymore. They were going on the offensive. Fast, attack ships began striking Imperial vessels and disappearing before they could be targeted. Hit-and-run tactics that frustrated and confused commanders used to massive fleet battles. They're not trying to defeat us in a single battle, observed the Emperor's tactical coordinator. The journey to Zethmora Prime took 3 weeks. Captain Jihoon stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching as his fleet prepared to emerge from hyperspace at the heart of the Zeltharan Empire. Behind him came 300 human vessels and 10,000 ships crewed by species that had been enslaved for centuries. Final systems check, he ordered. Remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to end this. Lieutenant Sua at the communications station reported, all ships ready, Captain. Liberation forces from 47 different species are in position. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace around the Imperial capital world. Zethmora Prime was a massive planet covered in gleaming cities and orbital defense platforms. It was beautiful, powerful, and protected by the largest concentration of military force in the galaxy. Incoming transmission from the planet surface, Sua announced. Emperor Zeth-Karan's image appeared on the main screen. Even through the transmission, he looked older than when this war had begun. The rebellions across his empire had aged him more than 800 years of rule. So the humans, come to my homeworld, he said. Have you come to destroy our capital as you destroyed our empire? No, Jihoon replied. We've come to offer you the same choice you offered us. Surrender peacefully, or face the consequences. You would dictate terms to the Emperor of the Galaxy? There is no Emperor of the Galaxy anymore, Jihoon said calmly. There are just people who choose to be free and people who choose to be afraid. Your empire is gone. The only question now is whether it ends with words or weapons. From her position as humanity's lead diplomat, Yoonji opened a channel that broadcast across the entire Zethmora system. Her voice reached every Imperial ship, every orbital station, every government building on the planet below. People of the Zeltharan Empire, she began. This is Yoonji of Earth, speaking for the United Liberation Fleet. For 10,000 years, your leaders have told you that conquest was necessary, that other species were inferior, that the Empire brought order to chaos. The broadcast continued to every corner of the system. We are here to tell you that this was a lie. Every species in this fleet was once enslaved by your empire. Every world that threw off Imperial rule did so because humans showed them that freedom was possible. You are not superior to other species. You are simply the last to realize that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Emperor Zeth-Karan tried to cut off the transmission, but human cyber warfare specialists had taken control of the communication networks. Yoonji's words reached every citizen in the Imperial capital. We do not ask you to surrender to us. We ask, You to surrender the idea that you must rule others to be safe. Join us in building a galaxy where species work together instead of fighting for dominance. Choose freedom over fear. On the planet below, something unprecedented began to happen. Citizens who had never questioned imperial rule started gathering in the streets, not to fight but to listen. The humans weren't threatening destruction or conquest. They were offering hope. Admiral Chanwu, coordinating the Liberation Fleet's tactical operations, watched the Imperial defenses with professional interest. The orbital platforms were impressive, the ship formations were textbook perfect, and the firepower was overwhelming. They could still fight, he reported to Ji-hun. The Imperial forces here could probably defeat our fleet if they were willing to accept heavy casualties. But they won't fight, Ji-hun replied. Look at their formations. Chanwu studied the Imperial ships more carefully. They were in defensive positions but not attacking positions. The commanders were waiting for orders that weren't coming. The Emperor is hesitating, Chanwu realized. More than that, he's thinking. Maybe for the first time in centuries, he's actually considering the consequences of his choices. On the Imperial flagship, Emperor Zethkaran stood before the great strategic display that had once shown him dominion over the galaxy. Now it showed 1,000 red markers where rebellions burned, broken supply lines, and worlds declaring independence. His empire wasn't dying. It was already dead. Imperial Majesty, his chief advisor said quietly. The fleet awaits your orders. What orders can I give? The Emperor asked. Attack the Liberation Fleet and prove to the galaxy that we're exactly what they say we are? Retreat and show that we're weak? There are no good choices left. There is one choice, Imperial Majesty. The Emperor turned to see who had spoken. It was General Kolveth, his oldest military advisor who had served the Empire for 3 centuries. What choice is that, General? The choice the humans offered from the beginning. Accept that the old way is finished and find a new way. You suggest surrender? I suggest wisdom. The Empire as we knew it is over. The humans have proven that no force in the universe is truly invincible. We can fight to the end and be remembered as tyrants who refuse to accept reality, or we can choose to be remembered as leaders who knew when to step aside. Emperor Zethkaran looked around his bridge at officers who had served him faithfully for centuries. He saw fear in some faces, confusion in others, but in General Kolveth's expression he saw something he hadn't expected: relief. You want this to end? He realized. I want the killing to end, Kolveth replied. For 10,000 years we've conquered and enslaved and destroyed. When does it become enough? When do we say that we've taken enough worlds, ruled enough species, caused enough suffering? The Empire is our legacy. No, Imperial Majesty, the Empire is our mistake. Our legacy will be what we choose to do now. The communication channel to the human fleet was still open. Emperor Zethkaran looked at Captain Ji-hun's face on the screen and saw something unexpected. Not hatred or triumph, but understanding. This human leader knew what it was like to make impossible choices. Captain Ji-hun, the Emperor said, if I were to accept your terms, what would happen to my people? They would be free, Ji-hun replied. Free to choose their own government, their own future, their own relationships with other species. We're not here to replace your empire with ours. We're here to make sure no species ever has to fear extinction again. And what of me? That's up to you. You can retire to your homeworld and live in peace. You can help rebuild what was broken. You can spend your remaining years making amends for what was done. Or you can choose to fight and die as the last emperor of a failed empire. Emperor Zethkaran closed his eyes and thought about 10,000 years of conquest. How many species had been enslaved? How many worlds had been stripped of resources? How many civilizations had been destroyed because they refused to submit? I have one final question, he said. Why did you humans fight so hard? You could have surrendered at first contact and saved billions of lives across the galaxy. Ji-hun smiled slightly. Because someone had to be first. Someone had to prove that you could be stopped. If we had surrendered, the Empire would have continued for another 10,000 years. How many more species would have been enslaved? How many more worlds would have been conquered? So you fought for species you had never met. We fought for the idea that no one should have to bow to a bully. That's what humans do. We stand up to bullies even when we're outmatched. The Emperor opened his eyes and looked at the strategic display one more time. His empire was gone, but maybe something better could take its place. All Imperial forces, he broadcast across the system, stand down, lower shields, power down weapons, and prepare to receive Liberation Fleet representatives. Across the Zethmora system, Imperial ships began shutting down their weapons. On the planet below, the crowds in the streets began to cheer. And throughout the galaxy, species that had been enslaved for millennia celebrated their freedom. 3 hours later, Emperor Zethkaran signed the formal dissolution of the Zeltharan Empire. The document was witnessed by representatives of every liberated species and broadcast live across the galaxy. The Imperial Age is over, he announced to the universe. From this day forward, every world chooses its own destiny. Every species governs itself. The galaxy belongs to all its children, not to any empire. Captain Ji-hoon stood beside the former Emperor as the ceremony concluded. What will you do now, he asked. I think I'll learn, Zethkaran replied. For 10,000 years I believed that strength came from controlling others. You humans taught me that true strength comes from freeing them. Perhaps it's time I discovered what that means. Historian Sua documented the final moments of the war in her report. The Galactic Empire was unready for humans because they expected us to fight like them. Instead, we fought like us. We told them to leave or fall. They chose to leave. Some lessons are learned the easy way. Others are learned the human way. As the Liberation Fleet prepared to return home, Captain Ji-hoon looked out at the stars and wondered what challenges awaited humanity next. Somewhere out there beyond the edge of known space, new civilizations were developing, new threats were growing, and new opportunities for friendship were waiting. But for now, the galaxy was free, and children across 1,000 worlds would grow up knowing that when someone threatened their freedom, there were humans willing to fight for it. The war was over. The age of cooperation had begun,